And go!
That you will lose all your data since they'll have to replace the hard drive.
In our life you've been dead.
Hey, this is the beekeeper.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
What?
It's really good. I need it.
Agent Parker,
Yes.
I'm so very sorry about your mother. But rest assured, her passing will not be in vain.
Coming at you tonight. Beautiful. Listen, you're my best guys. Nobody's. You ain't gonna come down. Everything. No one's gonna always do. Tomorrow we go again. We're good.
Will you stop his ass out, please?
Clay!
You know, I've got an old friend, Kurt Wimmer, who's a writer that I've had many sort of connections with over the years. Scripts that we nearly did, scripts that we didn't do. We haven't sort of done anything, and it was, you know, it was an opportune moment where we connected, and he passed me something. He slipped it to me. He'd just written it in the pandemic, and literally it was a page turner for me. And I was so excited. I said, we just got to do this, and we'll team up, and we'll make this happen very quickly. And you know, the sort of gods aligned. We got David to come on board, and Chris Long and Cedar Park, and it became something very special. We took it to Cannes, and the response was, you know, it was really good because, you know, you sort of have a taste of your own, but this one we felt that, you know, it had a universal appeal. It's a very sort of a touching film, if you like. It's quite dark, and it's a thriller, and it has lots of things that can shock and keep, you know, the action fans on the edge of their seats. But it does have a very strong sort of a very strong sort of meaning about, you know, right and wrong. It's about, you know, people that are vulnerable getting taken advantage of, and, you know, Adam Clay is a man that comes and sets those things and course corrects those moments. Well, there's a group of people that, you know, this kind of goes on every day, and, you know, they're scammers, and they make a phone call or they send an email, and they get people's attention by saying that they have a virus in their computer or something, and, you know, people don't know how to deal with those things, especially the elderly. And the elderly are the people that they target because, you know, they live solitary lives. They don't have people to look out for them and protect them like, you know, young people do. So they, you know, that's their first line of attack, is to get their fingers into the bank accounts of the old and the vulnerable. It's their life savings go down the pan. Everything gets, siphoned out. And there's no accountability for this. It just goes on, and it's a terrible thing that happens in society. We meet him, he's at the beginning of the film, and he's a retired sort of guy that just connecting with something that he has a love for, which is making honey and removing the honey from the hives, and he has this very sweet relationship with the honeybees, and it's the parallel between his actual title of being a beekeeper, which we find out later on what the real version of a beekeeper is when we come to this sort of governmental kind of special society. We pick him up, and he's living in the garden of a very sweet lady that, they have these exchanges of pleasantries every day, and they have a very sweet connection. It's almost like she's the mother he never had. Adam Clay is we don't know too much about him apart from the fact that no one ever took care of him. So we can fill in the gaps about his childhood, and this lady is a significant thing for him in his life, that she has deep meaning, and when she becomes a victim of the cybercrime of the scammers that take advantage, and he decides to get in front of that and take it all the way to the top. And as the movie escalates, we get to understand that it's everything is much bigger than we anticipated it to be. Well, I think the more of the mystery that we can retain, the better it is, because when you tell too much about the guy, what we do know, he has an incredible skill set. He's almost like a super soldier that is there to protect society. When society can't protect itself, he's the person. The beekeepers come in to recreate the equilibrium. And that's what Adam Clay really stands for, is one of these guys that doesn't really exist. He's this almost like this ghost that comes in and course corrects what's leaning to the left when it should be right in the middle. Verona is the daughter of Eloise, which is the sweet lady that takes care of me. And I live in a barn in her back garden, and she makes me dinner, and I bring her honey, and we have this almost like a mother-son relationship. And when Verona turns up, she's an FBI agent, and she finds her mum sort of dead in a chair, and I'm at the scene of the crime. Adam Clay is at the scene of the crime. And so there's a very, sticky start for us too. And there always is going to be that, because she's on one side of the law and Adam Clay is on his side of the law, which is the right side. I mean, the law is the law, but when it fails, it's difficult to, sometimes the law gets in the way of what right and wrong is. The protocols of what's allowed can be obstructive. So Adam Clay takes the reins on that, and what's right and wrong is very important to him. I've been very lucky to work with David, and people like David are very rare. They're an auteur, they're a writer, a director. They have this immersive kind of obsession in film, and what David does on a film set is just unique. He can change anything he wants to change at that moment. We can rewrite on the spot. He's there holding camera. He's finding and fishing for the right angles. He works very closely with all, the DP, and he's a very cinematic, he's very photographic. And most directors, sit behind a monitor and, they can, call action and cut. But David's right there. He's on top of you in that scene. He's holding the camera, and you feel his energy. You know what he's trying to extract from you. He's very articulate, and he's very clear with what he needs. And it's all a man could ever want. It's a lot of people don't have that skill, and it's an innate skill to him. He's very gifted in that world. He's been rewarded for his writing. He's been rewarded for his filmmaking, and people are knocking down doors to work with him. So we feel very lucky that we were able to work together, and this is a very special one I sit here now, the movie's over. I can honestly say I've been inspired every day when I come in to work with him. The stunt team that we have has been second to none. We've got a young guy, Jeremy Marinas, coming in with his team from the US. And, we're trying to do something that is very visceral and, very shocking and believable. So we're not trying to do something overly spectacular in kinds of its dazzle. We're trying to keep things very real, very dangerous, and very efficient. And I think that's what Adam Clay does. He provides efficiency rather than something overly flamboyant in terms of the fancy stuff. So we've kept it very real and very, very almost military-driven kind of danger. And this is all driven by David. This is his whole vision. He's the leader. We come in, we have ideas, but really his ideas are never anything other than great. And we just want to exact those ideas. The heart of this movie is something that would translate to any country, any family, anywhere, any person that would have heard of something of this nature. That once we set things in motion, we're off for a ride. It's these scumbags really get taken apart, and it's the cause is so justified, and I think everyone has an attachment to someone in their family that might have been preyed upon, getting conned in some way. It's out there. And I think everyone in their life will have come across that in some way, whether it's within their immediate inner family or a friend or someone that has been taken to the cleaners, as they say, and it's not good. So I think there's a social justice to it that has a global appeal. There's all kinds of history to the power of the bee. There's remarkable things about honey. There's thousands of years old. They find pots of honey in tombs that you could still eat today. It never goes off. It never spoils or sours. It has some amazing qualities. You can set it on fire. There is, the ways that the bees work. Without the bees, we wouldn't be here. They're a very special, integral part of nature and the cycle of life. So, yeah. We've learned a few things about the bees.
I mean, playing Derek is a pretty big departure for me. He's an absolute maniac who is, high on power, high on money, and high on many substances. So I typically try to stay away from a lot of those things myself. But it was just going into the headspace of somebody who is just on a tear, and his ego and narcissism are just like firing at levels that no one should ever experience. It was it's a lot. It's exhausting, but it's really fun to just tap into a whole other side of yourself that you didn't know existed, and you kind of find out it's scary that it can't exist. I found it very funny. I think that there's like a real dark humor that's kind of throughout, and working with David Ayer as well, he's got a very dark sense of humor that he pulls out of scenes and moments that are very unexpected. So I thought it was just an enjoyable read. I think that the story of revenge and like what does justice really look like, what does one man's justice look like compared to other people's, and just kind of what violence and destruction can become if you let vengeance kind of take hold of you. Derek is he's in an interesting spot because he comes from a lot of money. His family is like titans of industry with shipping and old oil money, so he feels kind of untouchable in many ways. And he's made most of his money legitimately through crypto, NFT, and he's got a really fast, intelligent kind of business mind. But he kind of has this dark secret on the side that's his passion project, which is very evil. And that's when, he runs these centers that basically rob older people of their life savings. And I talked with David a bit about why. Like, why does Derek do this? Like, he has the money, he has power, why does he want this thing? And I think it kind of comes back to what we sort of landed on was he wants something that's his dirty little secret that no one else can touch, that and operating outside the bounds of law when his mom is, you know, the commander-in-chief. There's something that just gets that part of him going of wanting to be as powerful as possible. So he has this dark, secret, nasty little side hustle that brings in a lot of money as well, and ultimately it's his downfall. Working with David has been incredible. I mean, you know, we go from shooting a scene where he'll come up and give you like 2 words of direction about like, tell him about the machine elves. And you're like, the what? He's like, the machine elves. Like when you smoke DMT and you go to the other dimension, the machine elves mock you and then you go back. So tell your mom about that, which I think is very funny and dark and very Derek-like. And then the next moment he'll come to you and he'll tell you, like the piece of direction he gave me in one of the scenes with Gemma, who's playing my mom, he was like, all of us just want to love and be loved with the tools that we have. And then you're like, shit, okay. Wow, now I gotta bring that into the fold. So he'll like work you into one space and then kind of bring it to another very grounded human emotion space, which I think is just really, it's really enjoyable. And for me as an actor to get to play with that kind of range of direction is really, really great. Dave and I had a few conversations about this as well, and you know, I think that there's a part of Derek that is projecting his father onto Westwild and kind of, he's in a position of power over Westwild. So there's a part of Derek that enjoys just messing with Westwild and kind of making him do whatever he wants. In a way, it's kind of like that thing of being more powerful than your father and wanting to like supersede everything that they do and become a better version of them. So I think that he projects a lot of that onto Westwild. I think Westwild is just holding on for dear life with whatever this kid's about to do wrong to get them into even more trouble. So it's a very fun dynamic. And Jeremy Irons, I mean, obviously he's, you know, a legendary actor and he brings such power and weight into every moment. And then to get to play the character that's kind of bullying him as this like younger, like shithead kind of guy, I think it's really fun. And it's created a lot of great moments. Derek, when we start this film, feels invincible. He feels that no one can touch him, nothing can bring him down. And at first it's a nuisance. It's like this, and he says it in the script, I say that he's a crash test dummy with a gun. And that's kind of what he views Clay as for most of the movie until he's literally blowing open the doors and taking care of business. So I think that, you know, it starts off being a nuisance, and basically Derek's a guy where he just is like, it's not my problem. Like, I pay people stupid amounts of money. You guys fix this. Like, don't bother me with all this nonsense. Like, yeah, some guy who got pissed off. Okay, cool, whatever. Like, go do your job. And that's very much Derek's mentality until it's inescapable and everything comes crashing down. Derek is kind of isolated a bit in his own little world, and his world really consists of Westwild and his mom, who's Gemma Redgrave, who's a phenomenal actress, and again, like a powerhouse. So I get to be this like annoying surrounded by powerhouse actors, so it's really fun. But Gemma was incredible, and she, as well as, you know, as Jeremy, and with David's direction, just find these very nuanced, truthful moments. And, you know, David will be giving her direction about, like, you're gonna walk in and you're having a cigarette and you guys, like, used to do drugs together. So it's like, okay, that's one way of looking at the mother-son relationship. And then all of a sudden he'll tell her, now all you care about is wanting to see your son survive this moment. And so, and just having actors that are as dynamic as Gemma and Jeremy to be able to take those directions and run with them, but yet keep them very grounded, it's a blessing that you don't get very often. Derek was originally written as kind of very dapper, very clean-cut, put-together, three-piece suit kind of guy. But then when I came on board, David's vision of Derek started to change, and we just leaned into this guy who has so much money, not really any sense of style, but just needs to be like big swinging. That's like his whole thing, is like green is his color, money, power, gold, green, like that's his world 100%. And then we decided, it was funny because after I did the Hunger Games, they had my hair bleached blonde, and I hated it so much, like the whole process, and it was so annoying. And I said, I'm never dyeing my hair blonde again for a project. And then the moment I got the call from the hair and makeup team, and they're like, hey, so we're thinking about maybe like bleaching your hair. I was like, oh, that sounds amazing, let's do it. I completely forgot about like all of my past ideas of what I would or wouldn't do, which is a very me thing to do. But it, you know, I think that having this crazy hair, normally he has like a diamond gold stud earring. He mixes patterns. Like I've got this floral, I don't even know what, silk with like snakeskin boots. It's just, he's so out of touch with reality, and I think that trying to express that through his clothing as well was really enjoyable. I only got to shoot one scene with Jason. He's a delight. He's an absolute workhorse, and that guy is like a fine watch. It's like perfectly tuned. He's always on it. He never misses a beat. And you know, from every time that I was shooting my scenes, he was on the second unit action stunt team killing hundreds of people. Like this man was just nonstop working. But I didn't get to spend a lot of time with him, unfortunately. The Danforth compound, I mean, that's really the whole climax of the movie takes place there. And, you know, we've gone through a lot, especially Clay has gone through a lot to get to that point in the story. And it's just, the walls are falling around Derek. And, you know, he's kind of gotten to this point where he's in blind rage, Coke and whiskey fueled rage. And, you know, he's basically watching as what he thought was impossible was actually becoming possible, which is that someone can get to him and someone can take him down. But it's a monster. I mean, you know, it's probably like 18 pages of the script happened there in that compound, including multiple huge scenes between me and Gemma, where I'm, you know, pleading with her and begging her for her love, and it's just like tempers at an all-time high, like voices cracking, like emotionally very, very strenuous. And we did one take. It was like a 6-page scene, maybe 5-page scene, and we did one take where David wouldn't cut. He would just reset and reset and reset. It ended up being like a 30-minute take without cutting. And we're like, my heart was pounding. I was dripping in sweat. It was just very like physically exhausting. But I enjoyed it. It's really like when you get to a point where you do a take that's that long and you're just worn so far down, you find new things and like you express things in ways that are differently than you normally would approach them. So it was a joy and a mountain to climb for sure. It's hard to really describe this film, but kind of what I've been telling people, like the short version of it is it's like an epic vengeance story about a guy who has a very peculiar set of skills. He keeps bees, which is very weird, but he's also part of this larger organization of beekeepers that are these super secret kind of government high-level assassins, basically. And I get on his wrong side, and he basically is on a kill streak of trying to get to me to take down this evil corporation that I've set up, which robs old people of their life savings. So it's a story of searching for justice and really like what does justice mean and how that looks for different people's perspectives. You know, I think that this film obviously is going to have insane sequences of action, you know, with Jason at the helm and just kicking ass and cars exploding, and it's going to have all of that stuff and done in a very unique, dynamic sort of fight choreography way. But then also, it's just a badass story of vengeance about one man whose desire to bring justice to someone, he'll stop at nothing. And so it's also funny, I think. Maybe it's just my twisted humor, but I think it's darkly funny. And my character is so ridiculous, he's laughable in so many ways, but always grounded in reality. So it's a dark, grounded action comedy that's hyper violent. It happened to my great grandma, which is funny. I just now realized that. Like my great grandma, this is probably a few years ago. She's still alive. She's like 94 and drinks bourbon. She's amazing. But she was one night. She calls my little brother and she's like, "Connor, I can't take this anymore. You have to tell your family." My brother's like, "Grandma, what are you talking about?" And she's like, "Connor, don't, please, I can't take it anymore." He's like, "Grandma, I don't know what you're talking about." And she was like, "You called me 2 nights ago and said that you got arrested and you'd had too many glasses of champagne after someone's wedding, and you got arrested and you needed money to get you out of prison, but not to tell anybody." And my brother's like, "Oh no, Grandma, that I didn't do that." She's like, "Yes, you did." And I guess like somebody called her and she went to like Walmart and bought Apple gift cards and then scratched off the back and then did that whole thing. And it's evil, man. It's evil. And like my grandma is such a sweet woman and like she wants to help everybody, but she is susceptible in ways, you know, and she answers her house phone, which she still has every time. And it's just, you know, it's evil. It's It's pretty dark. I'm on Clay's side, man. Get him. Take him down. Take me down.
Well, I read the script, and it's an action script. They're sometimes hard to get through because there's so much action. But I found this script a real page turner. I thought it's a fantastic story. The action was very well described, and we're now beginning to see it being filmed. But I wanted to know what was going to happen. It really pushed me on, and I thought, well, if it's that good a read, it's probably going to be that good a film. So I was interested to take part, particularly since the character that I was asked to play is fairly enigmatic, difficult to know where he stands, and we've refined this, I think, even more during the shooting. So I thought it'll be an interesting journey, and I was an admirer of David Ayer's. So Eric Danforth is my employer, young man, sort of black sheep of the family, with the craziness, and my job is to try to protect his family's company from his actions as much as I can. And the first time we meet, he comes to me, he has a big problem, a problem which at that moment I don't appreciate quite as deeply as I will come to do, and I tell him to sort it out himself. And then very soon after that I realize that I'm going to have to step in and call in favors from people I know through my life and my past life to try to sort the problem out. But he's a wild card, and very difficult when he's your employer, which strictly he is, to deal with. The president is someone that I've known romantically before she became president, and we have that relationship in the past. And I think it has something to do with why she asked me to look after her son. She knows I'm a trusted friend. Nevertheless, from where she stands, I'm not doing my job too well. So there is a friction there, but it's an interesting little bit of color into the story. It's great working with Jason. I mean, he is a master of what he does. Very nice man, quiet, gentle, immensely professional, very fit. Of course, an Englishman who I've watched since he first appeared. Like any talented person, he's very easy to work with. He's welcoming, he listens, he has a good mind, he's very good at what he has to do. And it made it a great pleasure to work with him. Well, Josh is delightful young man. He's fantastic in the role, easy to play with, comes at you with unexpected moments. I think he'll be, I think he's wonderfully cut out for this character. He's found a great way to play it. And our scenes were a lot of fun, even though my character and his character are very ambivalent about each other. Well, he's very relaxed, very concentrated as a director. He, of course, has written the script or done all the final adjustments on the script. So most of the clues of how to play the scene, how to play the character are there in the script. And with my experience, he largely leaves me alone, gives me an idea now and again. He has a fantastic eye. He's a wonderful camera operator himself. And he's made it very easy to do my scenes, and I've watched him, I've been involved in action scenes, and he surrounds himself with the best people, the best stunt guys. We have a fantastic cameraman, great crew, and so it's looking very good, and he, I think, just concentrates on making sure it's absolutely real and has all the qualities of the shots that he wants. So he's a quiet director on the sets. You often have to hunt him down to find him. But he's a sort of director you trust. You know when he says he's got it, that he's got it. It's about corruption, the corruption of power, how power corrupts, and to a certain extent, naivete of thinking that that can be dealt with easily. But it is endemic in our societies, and I think as we see it from a distance, hopefully, a lot of us would like to be in Jason Statham's shoes. Because I think there'll be a lot of people out there who've been through this sort of scam and who want retribution, and of course in this internet Twitter world it's very hard to get justice for some people whose finances or whose security or whose reputation has been damaged by these technological scams. Beekeepers are people who look after beehives, and beehives are very complicated systems, very finely tuned systems, and rather like society is. And so the beekeeper is somebody who sets about protecting that hive, that system. And so they carry the same name as the man who looks after the beehive. Well, I think if they have as good a time as I did when I read the script, it'd be fine. Of course, what audiences want is to be excited, to be made to think, to be amused, to be thrilled, and for it to be worth the money. And I think with the Beekeeper they'll get all of that. I play a character who has spent his career in the diplomatic and then in the CIA, and then becoming the head of the CIA, then retiring and moving into, so to speak, the corporate jungle. But I'm asked by the person who's running for president to look after, during her presidency, to look after her large company, multinational company.
So Kurt's script had that thing that's really important to a movie, and its structure. It was really smartly laid out, and I'm pretty good at guessing turns and twists and things like that as a writer. But what Kurt did in his writing is he got ahead of me, and if he can get ahead of me, I know he can get ahead. I know we can get ahead of the audience. And also, he has a great sense of fun. The script had this great sense of fun, this great, cast of these very dynamic, very kind of interesting characters. Nobody's flat. Everybody has a very unique perspective. So, that's something absolutely, neat as a director, as a filmmaker, to have that definition in the characters. And it was just, again, like a lot of fun and a great opportunity for a lot of incredible action. Emmy's FBI partner in the film is Bobby Naderi, who's a great actor. I love using him. He can just blend into any role. And he becomes sort of this cynical, conscious voice about what are they doing, why are they doing it. And I think because what they stumble across is so big and so almost overwhelming, that he gets a little scared by it. And whereas Emmy is really trying to solve the murder of her mother and has that personal stake, Bobby is such a great character where, they're like a married couple. They have this great interaction, this incredible banter, and it's a lot of fun to watch their scenes together. But they are on the tail of something big and something scary. So sadly, a really common thing that happens is a lot of seniors, a lot of people that are vulnerable get targeted by these phishing scams. And they can range from clicking on the wrong thing to a really sophisticated operation where people are really targeted and over several days can be drained of everything they have, everything they worked for. They can lose the deeds to their house because these scammers are so good at what they do and so precise. And it was interesting, as we crewed up the movie, crew members would come on and everyone kind of had a story. Everyone had a story about someone they knew who had been scammed. Everybody had a story about something that almost happened to them or their mom or did happen. And it really opened my eyes to the scope of this problem. And it is nice to be able to direct attention to something that people need to know about in a film. They need to know about this. You know, very important characters in the film, and they're the bad guys. They're the bad guys, and because they do bad things and condone bad things. It's Jeremy Irons, who, incredible actor, just a really gifted actor, and I was so honored to work with him, and it was such a pleasure to have him on set. He plays a former CIA director who has sort of come under the sway of a less than ethical crypto businessman, played by Josh Hutcherson. And Josh really, I think, developed himself in an interesting way in this film because it's such a different character from anything we've ever seen him play. And he's such a good actor. Josh is an amazing actor. And then you combine him with, you know, a legend like Jeremy Irons, and now you have this incredible chemistry, and you start to believe these characters. You start to believe them. You feel them. You have a sense of their desperation, and you have a sense of their growing desperation as they get chased by a beekeeper. Yeah, so the idea, you know, we had an idea with Jason, something we really wanted to work with, out of Kurt's script, that he isn't a gun guy per se. He's not running around with a weapon all the time. It's just a tool, one of many tools that he uses. And he may get a gun and take it apart and turn it into a stabbing weapon or a club. So it's kind of wild, you know, to see these things happen in the film, but a lot of work went into sort of creating these moments and really getting that dexterity in the rehearsal. It was almost the idea that, you know, Beekeeper has hands like a magician, you know, that he can do anything. Jeremy Marinas, who was my stunt coordinator, fight coordinator, just did an incredible job there because it's coming up with the grammar. What does the movement look like? What do our fights even look like? You know, are they cowboy brawls? Are they cowboy brawls? Are they more sophisticated? And we have very sophisticated kind of fluid action that develops. And, you know, the process is Jeremy writes action, shoots it on video, we present it to Jason. Jason has his ideas, and he's really smart, and he really knows what he's capable of and want to make sure that is showcased in these stunt choreographies. Then we practice and practice and practice, and then I figure out how to get a camera on it, and then you just grind on the day. You know, shooting action, I don't think people understand, is there's a lot of repetition to it. It's a very physical, strenuous activity, even for the crew. But it's a lot of fun, and when you see those shots, those dailies come out, and you know you're going to take, you know, a treasure trove back to editorial and create an amazing stunt sequence, and it's just like being in the delivery room and watching something incredible come out. So Jason is very successful at upsetting the bad guys, and as he starts to dismantle their organization, they realize they need to do. As he starts to dismantle their organization, they realize they need to do something, and they need to do it fast. And they're sort of able to game the system, and they get a beekeeper to go after a beekeeper. And so Anisette shows up. She's the local beekeeper, and it's her responsibility now to take out Jason, who's retired. You know, beekeepers have their own politics, and maybe we'll learn more about that in the future. But it's a really wild scene. She shows up at this gas station with a military Gatling gun and then proceeds to just absolutely cause havoc. And it was a lot of fun to choreograph that fight. You know, there's several rope pulls and special stunts we did, but it's just a lot of fun. It's a good popcorn moment. It's a great fight sequence. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of stuff happening, and just to keep it exciting, we blew the place up at the end too, which was, I think, our last shot of the night, which is generally what you want to do when you blow up your set. And that gave us a nice fireball about 5 a.m. before the sun came up, and we went home. That was a tough day. if you really look at the film, you know, the main driver of all the craziness happening is really Josh Hutcherson, who is this out of control kid, privileged, comes from wealth, comes from, you know, the Silicon Valley crypto culture, probably was the Burning Man. And he is absolutely desperate and has no boundaries. And part of the fun of this, you know, watching this film, you never know what Josh Hutcherson is going to do next. You never know what outrageous things he's going to say. You never know how he's going to manipulate the people around him to solve his own problems. And poor Jeremy Irons, you know, has to try and keep this guy safe. His job there is he's really head of security for someone who seems hell-bent on self-destruction. It's a good dynamic. There's nothing more thrilling for me as a director to have an incredible actor come on set. And this was a great opportunity to work with Minnie Driver. And she has a small but incredibly important role in the film. And I find that, you know, when you cast powerful people, when you cast government officials, it's important to cast an actor who feels like they have the gravitas and horsepower to really be that person in real life. And Minnie absolutely, I mean, she plays the head of the CIA. I'm gonna give it away here. And I buy her in that role 100%. And what she says tells us a lot about the beekeepers, that maybe there's more going on between the government and the beekeepers than we know, and that we probably shouldn't mess with the beekeepers. I think Jason has an interesting background. He, you know, was a bit of a street hustler in North London at one point. You know, you got to survive, right? So he understands the world, let's say. And he was a Muay Thai fighter, a kickboxer, gifted kickboxer, and a diver. He's a very athletic guy. He's kind of done it all. And the thing with Jason, he has this incredible physicality, which you just don't see in a lot of actors. It's not a common thing to have a true movie star who is also a gifted fighter. In the real world, he can go in a boxing gym and hold his own. And so he understands fighting in a very experienced way, but just it's truly an honor to work with him because he has such an instinctual understanding of what's going to look good on that screen. For audiences, when they go and see this movie, it's really about going to the movies. It's about great acting, great action, cinematic visuals. It's about intricate characters that bounce off each other in fun ways. It's about being thrilled. It's about being scared for the hero and not being sure if he's going to make it, and then he makes it. So I wanted to create a Jason Statham movie where he takes us on not just an action journey, but an emotional journey. I wanted this to be like the action movies I grew up on, that when you watch them, there's something really satisfying about how they resolve. You feel like you've watched a movie when those lights come on at the end. I think the idea behind a beekeeper skill set is they don't need to run around loaded up with guns, you know, like a soldier would. A beekeeper is going to use the environment. A beekeeper is going to sort of sneak in, cause damage, and get away before he knows what happened. A beekeeper can sneak in, cause damage, and get away before you know what happened. And maybe they'll use a wine bottle. They're going to use anything available in the environment to take out the bad guy and get the mission done. If they need a gun for the task, absolutely. If they got to blow stuff up, they're going to do that. I think a beekeeper is a virtuoso of violence. When I went and made this movie, I realized how little I knew about bees, and they're pretty fascinating. They how they operate, how they're regimented. Different kinds of bees, you know, workers, drones, queens. There's bees with specific functions, and in a sense, there are warrior bees that'll go out and fight when there's a threat to the hive. And so a beekeeper understands all of these things. A beekeeper knows how to change the queen if there's a problem with the queen in a hive and preserve the hive. A beekeeper knows how to move a hive. A beekeeper knows how to handle the hive. So it's interesting because I read something that the bees aren't necessarily conscious of a beekeeper when a beekeeper shows up. They don't see the beekeeper. So the beekeeper is almost like this force of nature, this invisible force of organization that is shaping the reality of the bees, and the bees aren't aware of that. And it's such a great idea to play with, the idea of governments and who fixes things and who has a vision for society and how to help people. So the idea of the beekeepers is that they're really outside of the government, and trust me, if the government could control them and get in there, they absolutely would. And so a lot of thought went into what would that look like in the real world, and how would it be dealt with? And if you're a government official, what would that look like in the real world, and how would that be dealt with? And if you're a government official, how do you react to this organization that's running around doing things that you have no control over? And the obvious answer is, well, you keep it all secret and you pretend it doesn't exist. So this is the first time I worked with Jason, and it's, you know instantly on set how that's going to unfold the first day. And I'm watching him, and you have all the meetings, you rehearse and all the discussions, and you do all the choreo rehearsals, and so we went to set with a great relationship. But until you meet the actor on set, you haven't met the actor. And it was honestly shocking, because he knew the angles, he knows the lenses, he knows the lights, he knows these intricate ways to move, body positioning, how to hold his face, and you can't teach that. That's something movie stars have. And you look at old movies, and I study old movies, and there's a stillness and a presence and just this sophisticated understanding of how cameras work. And when you work with an actor who has that, it's an absolute pleasure, because at that point you're capturing magic.
When I first got my hands on the script, I was super excited about it. I, one, know that bees are very important to the survival of us and our planet, so I was intrigued with the bee knowledge and mythology and plot line, having Adam Clay be a beekeeper, but then also him being a different kind of beekeeper. So I was intrigued by the duality of those two things at play. And I think Verona's storyline was also really intriguing to me. I think this woman we meet her in an extreme moment of grief and shock and sadness, and the loss of her mother, and then she kind of has to put that aside to do her job and do her duty, and the duty that she swore an oath to do. And it's conflicting, and I love the rub that she has with knowing what's right and doing what's right and doing what she swore an oath to do, but also feeling conflicted because here's a man who is taking a different route, and a route that she's not supposed to take, but he's actually getting the job done and getting the job done a lot faster than she is. And so I love that conflict that is living inside of her with coming into the orbit of Clay and how he does things, but then also being stuck behind, bureaucracy and all the red tape of being a government official and a government employee. In playing Verona, she's heartbroken, she's devastated. She just lost her mother in a very shocking way, and she's needs to grieve that, but we also meet her in a moment where there isn't time to grieve her mother, because this massive investigation is unraveling right in front of her eyes, and she's kind of in the middle of it, and she is closely related to one of the main and the initial victim, which is her mother, but then she also has this interesting relationship and dynamic that is evolving throughout the film with Adam Clay and his revenge journey that he's on. And I think she's conflicted. I think the people that he is acting out his revenge on are people that are criminals and crooks and people that are stealing money from vulnerable people and ruining many, many lives, especially, the elderly and the vulnerable and people that are easy targets, and that disgusts her. And so he's doing the dirty work, and I can't say that she doesn't not agree with what he's doing, but I think she also has to take a different route because she's not she herself is not a beekeeper. She is a special agent, and there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of red tape. So I think she's conflicted, which I think that is so juicy as an actor to get to play and get to explore the conflict of moral conflict in general is really juicy. And also, who doesn't love a revenge story? Love a revenge story. Portraying Verona has been really exciting, and there's a lot to chew on. I think when we meet her, she's just arrived very shortly after the death of her mother, and that's a shocking discovery. And her and her mom, I believe, had a very complicated relationship because she also lost her brother in action a couple years before. And I think so she does have an estranged relationship with her family. And so I think she finds herself at this crossroads of needing to discover what happened to her mom and uncover the reasons why she did what she did, but also how Clay is involved and how involved he is. But also having to put her personal feelings aside so that she can be the one that's on this case, because a lot of times you're not allowed to mix business and your personal life. And so I think she really has to keep a lid on her grief and her emotions so that it doesn't get in the way of her work, and so she can go on this journey, which I do think in turn is the case of a lifetime for her, at least in this stage of her career. This is something that her and Wiley have been working on for years, and they've gotten no traction, and they've made very little discoveries. And then sadly, the death of her mother kind of kicks off, blows open the lid on the whole thing, and involves Clay, and Clay is on a revenge journey, and I think who doesn't love a good revenge journey? It's a tricky one. I think it's tricky because I think he is not bound by the red tape and the paperwork and approvals by people with classifications that Verona and Wiley don't have. There's a lot of steps involved to being an FBI agent and taking down criminals and hackers and con men. And Clay is skipping all of that and getting the job done. And it's definitely not the way that it should be done. But I think Wiley and Verona, and especially Verona, really struggle with the morality of that, and yes, he's getting the job done, and yes, he's doing things that they would never be able to do in the positions that they're in, but he's also, running around taking down entire office buildings with all of their employees in a single moment, and that's not the ideal way to take down these, regional call centers and criminals and crooks, but I think that's what's so fun to play with is the conflict between, the job is getting done, but it's not getting done by Verona, and it's not getting done in the way that she's supposed to do it. So that's fun. I think it switches hands every now and then. I think Wiley's really concerned about Verona and her well-being and how she's handling this and how she's handling the grief and the loss of her mother and her ability to kind of suppress that grief to work this case. I think that concerns him. I think they are as close to brother and sister as they can be. I think they deeply care for each other and respect each other and look out for each other. But I do think that they feel the same about Clay. I think they both see that without him, they wouldn't be as far along in this case as they are at this point in the movie. And I think it's also frustrating because Clay leaves a lot of wreckage for them. So they're always kind of arriving after the fact and when it's a little bit too late and the damage is already done, which I think is really frustrating. But I do think as the movie progresses, they do start to, and I think especially Verona, start to question this oath that she's taken and is is the government that she works for and the people that she works for and all of the rules that she has to abide by, is that actually getting the job done? Is that actually making a difference? And so I think they both start to question that throughout the film. The beekeeper is played by the one and only Jason Statham, and in the movie his name is Adam Clay. And Adam Clay keeps bees, which is amazing. I'm always envious of beekeepers. I think I'm frightened of bees, but we need them. They're very important. But I understand beekeeping. I think, especially for Clay, I think there is a level of purity and purpose that exists and is vital to the success of a beehive to produce honey. And I think it's calming for him because not only is he a keeper of bees, he is also a beekeeper, which is an extremely classified program of mercenaries, assassins, fixers, cleaners, you name it. So I think having lived a life like that, which is, I'm sure, nothing but extremes, having, his real life and his personal life be something that is very calming and requires a lot of dedication and focus and patience, I think that's probably exactly what he needs. I'm having the best time working with Jason Statham. I will admit I was nervous because he's a legend and he is, a massive action star and actor and you never know what to expect when meeting people that you've seen in so many movies and are iconic in Hollywood, and it's just been so lovely, and he's so personable and so down to earth. And our first day on set together was one of the first scenes in the movie, which is a pretty intense scene for both of us. It's after the loss of my mother, and him kind of being there for me as moral support and kind of unraveling himself just enough to let me in and intrigue Verona. But and it was just the two of us sitting in a kitchen drinking coffee, having a really intimate two-hander scene, and it was incredible. I think he's such an incredible actor, and he's a really good listener on screen and in real life. We've just had some great chats, and I think this movie for him, I think it was really important to David to dive into the human side of these characters and their emotional journeys. And yes, there is all of the action and all of the fights and the guns and the blood and like everything that you want in an amazing action movie, but there's also this really deep layer of emotional, like a very deep emotional well for these characters to dive into, and it's really exciting, and it's been really fun to uncover that as we go and kind of get to see everybody progress in their emotional journey on this film. Verona Parker would be nothing without her partner Wiley, played by the one and only Bobby Naderi, and it's been the best time. We from day one, him and I just got on like a house on fire, and we are in essentially every scene together and have to have this very close, intimate brother-sister energy connection, inside jokes that has to reach through the camera. And I don't know how David did it. I'd never met Bobby before we started working on this. We'd never chemistry read together, but they cast both of us separately, and from the moment that we met, we just both knew that we were just gonna have the best time, and we just make fun of each other all day and laugh and really just play off of each other every day at work and kind of tee up the joke for each other when it's time, and I just think it's organically turned into this great friendship on and off camera. I'm feel so lucky to have been put in his orbit and get to know him as an actor, because I think he's an incredible actor and partner, and yeah, he's all right. I mean, this cast is pretty stacked. We've got Jeremy Irons, we've got Jason Statham, Bobby Naderi, we've got Josh Hutcherson, who's a dream, such a sweetheart. We've got Minnie Driver, and then the also legendary Felicia Rashad is playing my mother. Can you even? Hello? What? I mean, what? This cast is insane. I think when you're embarking on a movie that is being directed by David Ayers, starring Jason Statham, you know that the level of stunts and action is going to be through the roof, top notch. And our stunt team has absolutely killed it. It's unbelievable. I don't get to do a lot of fighting, but I do a lot of running around with a gun and multiple guns, and a couple other projects I've had, some tactical training, but not to the level I have. I've been lucky enough to have on this, getting to work with firearms and just, furthering my education, because playing an FBI agent, you need to look like you know what you're doing when you're running around with a giant weapon strapped to your chest. I'm just trying to make the FBI proud, I suppose. So it's been actually really educational, and I don't have a lot of knowledge of weaponry, so I've just been kind of soaking all of that up and trying to feel and come off as authentic as possible while running around and chasing Jason all over the place and running upstairs and downstairs and busting through doors, and it's been really exciting and really kind of on the fly, which I'm usually not very good at, but David is kind of changed my perspective on just being in the moment and having things happen on the fly, especially when it comes to action and fighting. A lot of that is so rehearsed and choreographed, and because it has to be, it's dangerous. So it's been a perfect mix of it's been a perfect mix of just in the moment, and also, lots of training beforehand, so that, in the moment we have all the information we need to have so that we can kind of pull off the impromptu moments to the best of our ability. I have nothing but amazing things to say about David Ayers. This experience has been just so fun and lovely and exciting, and I believe that energy always trickles down from the top. And I think the moment that I met David via Zoom, I just could tell that we were going to get on great and have a great experience. And he's an actor's director. I think he really cares about his actors and wants them to feel as comfortable and as prepared and as set up for success as possible. And coming from theater, we rehearse constantly. There's so much rehearsal, weeks and weeks and weeks, months, even years sometimes, before a show gets put up on Broadway. And it's kind of the opposite in TV and film. You don't get a lot of rehearsal time, but I think that is something that is really important to David. I think he loves rehearsals. He loves trying new things. He loves being in the moment also. And so I was really excited by that and his process. And I think he's really gotten me out of my shell of feeling like I have to understand and have control over every moment all the time. Because, so much of being an actor, you can only control really what happens between action and cut. Like, that's the little control that we have, is kind of in these finite moments. And so I think trying to control those moments as much as possible, but David's style is different. It's very let's just see what happens. And I've I've really learned to like love that and kind of live in, you know, sometimes it's chaotic and there's people running all over and there's all this action happening and helicopters are flying and it feels crazy. And he kind of encourages you, he's like, yes, this is insane. So let's live in that. That's okay. We don't have to normalize that, you know, giant helicopters are flying and there's people running around everywhere. And, you know, I think I've really enjoyed getting to explore that part of myself as an actor, and also getting to work with him and getting to know his directing style. And it's unlike any director I've ever worked with, and I just admire him so much, and I think he's so good at what he does and how he sees shots and moments and angles, and I trust him completely, and I just think he's so wonderful at what he does, and I've felt nothing but safe and inspired and encouraged and trusted and protected through this whole process, which as an actor, like, that's truly, it's very rare, and yeah, I'm just grateful for that. I think people are going to really love this movie. It's exciting, it's thrilling, it's so action-packed, it's unbelievable, but I do think that there is a deep level of heart and emotion and groundedness in this movie that's really exciting, and there's a ton of moral conflict, which who doesn't love moral conflict, and who doesn't love revenge?